Welcome to the Klutch Collective. Here in this podcast, we'll be going over things that we saw in the NBA recently. We recently had a big trade. We had Karl-Anthony Towns go to the New York Knicks. I really wanted to talk about that, but I also wanted to make sure I brought in some people who can talk ball, specifically a Knicks fan. And I brought in a Lakers fan today to discuss some of these things going on in the NBA. We're going to discuss the power dynamics in the East and West, some of the best teams in each conference, and then make some predictions on how we think the NBA is going to shake out this year. So, before we get started, I'll introduce myself and then I'll have my two guests introduce themselves. It's your boy, Clutch Chris, 76ers all day. I've been getting started on this podcast stuff and bringing in two of my trusted basketball guests. So, I'll let them go ahead.
Next time, Knicks forever. That's without a doubt. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate the invite, Chris. Thank you.
It's me, C. Millie, Lake Show. You already know what it is. Appreciate you having me.
Let's get it. All right, so just a few days ago, I was chilling in bed, or I might have been on the couch. Either way, I was laying down. I see on my phone, Karl-Anthony Towns has been traded to the New York Knicks. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a fake Shams account. I really don't know what I expected. It was just something that just hit me out of the blue. I don't know if I've seen a big trade like this happen so out of the blue. But it did. It shakes up the East a little bit more. It shakes up the whole NBA. And again, like I said, I want to get a real reaction from a Knicks fan. I'm gonna go to you, Ty. What did you think when you saw the trade? What were you doing? How'd you feel?
So I was sitting there. I was watching. Playing a little 2K, and then I got to heard the news. Because a couple of my friends put me onto what took place, and so my initial response was, I think that I talked about it with a couple of friends, and they wasn't kind of feeling my position. It's almost like a 50-50, on a trade. I'm on the side. I had precaution. I had concerns. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that Towns is. Some people saying he's weak, trash. I jokingly, I agree with that, but it's jokes. But in all seriousness, I'm completely aware, what he brings to the table, which is spreading the floor, which is not something that we was concerned about because we was doing that well. But the only thing I have an issue with, and the only biggest concern I have is the fact that we now, with what we have right now, the players we got an identity. We're gritty, we'll fight, defensive minded, with Tibbs, run at head coach and the players. It's a bunch of dogs. So I'm not completely familiar with Towns to know that he's going to fit in with that. I know he's an awesome player. I know he can spread that floor, and I think he's one of the best 3-point shooting big men. So I know the attributes. I just want to make sure he fits into the identity that we have. That's the biggest concern. And I had a friend who said, he was asking. He said, I don't think there's a need to sound the alarms. I'm not sounding the alarms. I'm just stating the obvious, concern. That's my stance on it.
I mean, I don't even think he's just one of the best big shooting big men in the league. He's just one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Man
Yeah.
has won, I think, one or two 3-point contests at the center position. So Um, as a Sixers fan, I was pretty mad when I saw it because, I want the Sixers to come out top in the East. And I think the Celtics, we can all agree, are like a clear number one. They just won the chip. They didn't lose anybody. I was like, with the addition of Paul George and everybody, I was like, yep, Sixers, Knicks gonna be going at it for that 2 seed. I still think that's how it's gonna be, but I think the Knicks got stronger in that trade. I really didn't personally see how Randall was going to fit there. I thought it was odd, having DiVincenzo, Randall, Bridges, Anunoby, Brunson, Mitchell. I was like, that's seven. Oh, Hart. There's like 7, 8 players that are good players. That means two of them were going to have to come off the bench.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out, I was like, who's coming off the bench? Mitchell? You going to start Randall at center? And then I was like, all right, well, if you don't start Randall, that means Mitchell's going to be starting. Does that mean Randall's coming off the bench, or is Anunoby or Bridges or Hart coming off the bench? And then does that just automatically mean DiVincenzo's going to get less minutes this year after he just had a career year? I was kind of confused by the whole thing, but in my Sixers fandom, I was kind of okay with that because I was like, the Knicks got to figure that out. They don't really
Right.
have much to figure out anymore. Their lineup is pretty much pretty set. Towns is the center. You got Mitchell
Yeah,
backing him up, which is crazy.
yeah,
Anunoby
yeah.
and Bridges at the 3 and 4, and then you got Hart and Brunson. I mean, that's a pretty solid lineup. I feel like there's no confusion on who's going to be starting and coming off the bench. It's pretty clear cut now. I do think losing DiVincenzo is going to be a big loss, but I don't think it's anything that the Knicks weren't ready to replace with Bridges and young boy rookie Deuce McBride. Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
ready to
yeah.
give him more minutes too. So
Yeah, and he earned it. And he earned it. And before I know you want to get your opinion in, Chris, just real quick. I also wanted to add, I honestly I was looking forward to. I knew it was they had to figure out how to fit Randall into it. I wasn't sure how they was going to work it, but he's definitely going to be in it. But I was looking forward to seeing how Randall gel with this new squad we had going. Because again, Randall, you can say what you want about him, but he's gritty and he don't back down. You know, and and I also want to speak to, and also I talk about concerns. One more concern about Towns is the fact that when you be honest, you being a Sixer fan, being a Philly fan, you know very well there's certain cities that's not built for every player. Um, and I think like a big example of that would be Ben Simmons that left Philly and went to Brooklyn. New York is it can be we are real true core hardcore fans, and we will let you know when you ain't doing your job. So I don't know if he's built for that, but we'll find out. We definitely will.
When it comes to me, I do think it's a great move. But when you speak to that mentality, that grittiness, that dogness, I think he'll be tested. I think he will benefit from you guys having a bona fide leader in Brunson, and everyone's behind Brunson. From a X's and O's standpoint, the spacing I think is going to be great because we all knew the writing was on the wall for Julius Randle, but you didn't want to trade him and kind of have a drop off or not get the assets back that you could get for a player like him. So I do think when you make a trade for somebody like Karl-Anthony Towns, who is a stud, um, I think they want him there. The players are excited that he's there. He seems to be excited that he's there, and his families have roots to the Knicks. So I think it may be a comfortable fit for him. So I think it's going to work out. You do have Mitchell backing him up, so you're not going to really have too many drop off from the boards. I think Brunson will benefit from the space and then having a big man like that because let's be honest, when Brunson drives the ball, people crash.
Man, really.
So and the big men, they're like their mentality is built to go crash and help block. And then Karl-Anthony Towns out there on the wing, he could put the ball on the floor too. So I definitely think it gives you guys a great ability on the court with a big, and you have somebody like Brunson, and then the defense between your wings is going to be great. So I think overall, I think it's a great move. I think he'll grow on you, no freaky, and I think you'll like that.
So I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. I think I do. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. I was going to say that definitely I could see that opening up the with them spreading the floor out like that and with Bronson attacking the paint, that's going to be big. I can see that being a potential. The only like I said, my only concern comes into play is the defensive side of the ball and his mentality. So and I really, to be honest, of course I'm aware of Towns, but I'm not too familiar with how he moves in defense. I know honestly I didn't follow a lot of his game. So
yeah, the other concern along with what y'all were saying is that Towns has played for Thibs before, and it didn't exactly go too well. If y'all remember the Jimmy Butler and Minnesota
I do.
years,
Yep. He
Dibs
had a
had
problem
him
with him.
in the paint, posting up. He had him, doing hook shots. He was playing more like a traditional big, in his time in Minnesota. Uh, Dibs wasn't really about letting him shoot that three ball. I think he might have a change of heart now, knowing that Towns actually is a bona fide 3-point scorer. So he's gonna let him shoot a little bit more. But yeah, they did have some issues because Towns wasn't able to defend like Dibs really wanted. I think Towns' main problem is he just commits dumb fouls and he fouls a lot. Like it's hard for him to defend straight up. He likes to go for the block and he'll foul people instead of just letting someone have a contested shot. He wants to go for the block and he swats, or he like uses his hands and he gets called for fouls and then he yells at the ref. That's what I've seen be a big problem, especially knowing that him and Embiid have beef, which is another fun thing for the Knicks Sixers rivalry is that Towns and Embiid traditionally don't like each other. They've legit fought on the court, like brawl, choking each other out type stuff. It's crazy. Like now they're gonna play each other 4 times a year. So
Yeah, New York already got a feelings about Embiid, so we all with the smoke on that. We with
Yep.
that. So,
So
but
I guess the other
but
side of it is I want to talk about what we think this does for the Timberwolves, because we talked about what it does for the Knicks. Something we kind of didn't mention is that this kind of locks the Knicks in with their lineup for the next few years. There's no more wiggle room. They gave up all their draft picks to get Bridges. They gave up all their draft picks to get Anunoby. They gave up, DiVincenzo and Randall to get Towns. Also, Towns is going to be making between 50 and 60 million a year for the next few years. So there's not really any more wiggle room. Like this is it for the Knicks. This is the roster right here. So if
yeah,
this roster can't get you a chip, there's really not much you can do. You can't really trade anybody anymore. You don't have any more draft picks. So you're kind of locked in. So that's probably something that's a little hard for you to,
yeah.
take in
But to
as a
be
Knicks fan. It's
honest,
like there's nowhere else you could go from here.
it's true. It's true. But to be honest, if you look at it, we did our work with our picks. Our picks got us to this point. So it gets to a point where you got to go all in. If you really following the situation, you can't just keep basing it off your picks every season. We've been doing that for a few years, few seasons now. So it's time. When Bronson came in and with that season we had last year, I think the team, the people at the top, they said, they want to go all in. So I'm all for it. But one point I wanted to speak on, it was that we can't forget the fact when Jimmy had a problem with your boy. If you remember, Jimmy felt he was lazy, and I'm hoping that was all got to do more with his age. That's why I'm hoping he matured. Maybe that won't be an issue, but I think that was an issue he had too. Jimmy had with it before he came to the Sixers. I believe that's what he was
Jimmy's
having
Yep.
issue
issue
was
with.
he was soft.
Yeah.
That's was the issue. That
That's
mentality and
exactly
that
it.
grittiness we
Yeah,
speak to, that was the issue.
yeah,
He
yeah.
couldn't get with the softness.
Boy said he had no dog in him.
Yep. So I guess for on the other side of it, for the Wolves, they now get Julius Randle, they get a first round draft pick, and they get Dante DiVincenzo. What that means for them
Yeah,
is that they were able to get away from that double big lineup that they were trying, where they had Towns playing power forward, they had Gobert playing center. Now they have a more traditional power forward playing power forward,
yeah,
even though he's less of a shooter than Cat. He is probably more geared to guard fours than Cat is. And I think Randall could guard threes too. So like they have a more traditional person for that role. I'm not sure if it's great for spacing, knowing that Anthony Edwards is who he's becoming. He's going to need a
yeah,
lot of space around him, so maybe not so great on that end. But to be able to move off of the 50 to 60 million that Cat is owed, I think that's really what they were trying to get at, is that they were trying to avoid paying that much money for one player when they had Naz Reid, who is coming to his own as an NBA player, a center,
yeah, yeah,
who's
yeah,
also about 6'9", 6'10", who could also shoot the three, who could probably defend just as well as Karl-Anthony Towns. I think the Wolves saw that and they weren't able to extend Naz Reid probably with the money that they're looking to give him with Karl-Anthony Towns on the roster. So they were able to move off that contract, bring in another good all-star player, bring in a star role player in DiVincenzo, and then also get another draft pick while also being able to now extend Naz Reid to a longer deal, to replace a lot of the production that Towns had. So I think it did a lot of good things for the Wolves. I've seen a lot of people really negative about it. Honestly, at first I was really negative about it. I was like, "Are you serious? Why would you give up Cat for that?" But when you look at the bank accounts and with the new CBA, you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, they can't give Cat all that money." So that's my take on why the Wolves did it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a horrible move for the Wolves. I think it works out well. It's going to be changed, like you stated. It's going to be some changes. Now, the real question is for me is how are they adjust to the changes being made to the team, and can they make it translate on the court? Because Julius might need that ISO from time to time. If you want him to do what he does, if you're being honest. And now and I don't know how that's going to go along with Edwards. Is that going to complement his game or not? So we're going to see.
Don't be surprised if Julius Randle's on the move again.
Yeah, yeah,
Honestly, like you spoke to, they got off of that contract. The new CBA is getting tougher and tougher to stack up teams with the big contracts, and they want to see what Naz Reid can really do with a bigger role. I would not be surprised if they moved Julius Randle again to
hmm
receive some more assets or players that fill into their team more. Anthony Edwards is ball dominant.
Yeah.
He's not about to sit there and watch Julius Randle run over people. He's just not going to do
Hey,
it.
hey, gonna watch the ISOs?
For the time being, for a bridge player, that's great to get him back, getting you off the contract. But look for him to be on the move again, for them to receive something that fits their team more and really, really start to build around Anthony Edwards. I think it's a great move for Minnesota. Like you said, getting off of that contract, you get to see more of Naz Reid, and I think it's a great move for them too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think for Randall and for DiVincenzo. Now, I'm not sure where DiVincenzo is in his contract, but I think for both of them, they're both going to be on their A game, their best behavior, which is good for Minnesota because Randall's in a contract year right now. So he's going to want to get re-upped, you know. He's going to want to play well so that he's able to get another, 30, 40 million a year. So if he's not playing well, he's not meshing with Minnesota. That only does harm to himself. So his best bet would just be lock in, play some good team ball, get, some pretty solid numbers, and one, either get traded, or two, prove that you can have some long-term success with this team so that they, add a couple years to your contract. I think DiVincenzo is going to be more of a plug-and-play player, so he's not going to have to worry as much. I think he's going to do what he does, help the team out, play defense, knock down threes, and I think he's going to help make them a better team. He's probably a better long-term piece for Minnesota
For sure.
than Randall is.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I didn't even mention that. That was a big loss for us, in my opinion. I want to put that out there so nobody start getting on me for not mentioning that. Just the energy he brought when he got on the field, the court, it's a big loss. So I think we had some players that I think McBride's going to step up, like you mentioned earlier, Chris. So I'm hoping so. But definitely, I we'll see.
See the Nova Knicks, man. We had the
Yeah,
Nova Villanova Knicks all ready to go, and
I
then
guess
as soon as we
they
got them,
said
they
they had
broke.
enough of them.
There was a report that DiVincenzo wasn't feeling it.
Of course not.
He just had a
Nah, of course.
breakout year. He was playing
Yeah,
37 minutes a game for the last half of the year. He
he
was
didn't want to
shooting
go nowhere.
43% from three. This dude was playing out of his mind. And
Yeah,
then the Knicks were like, "Hey, man, we're gonna reduce your role a bit." He was probably like, "Hey, hold
yeah.
up. Why am I the one getting the reduced role? Why don't you just reduce somebody else's role?" And they're like, "Yeah, nah, sorry, bud." So he was probably
It's only
like,
one ball. That's why.
Right,
There's only one
right.
ball. And
"All right,
Karl-Anthony Towns, Brunson's a star, but Karl-Anthony Towns gonna need that rock too.
yep,
Yeah.
yep."
He's gonna have to fall into. He's gonna have to fall into his role though, because he's coming into this. This is Bronson's team. Let's let that be said. I say it here, so he's gonna have to fall into that role.
His
Yep.
role as a star player though. But yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
So
go.
we're gonna move into the next thing, and what that really is how this kind of shakes up the East and
Yeah.
where you see like the power ranking. So we could say like we could put them in tiers like A tier, B tier, C tier. What teams right now in the East are we gonna say are like A tier, or do we give Boston their own tier and then we start like are we all agreed that Boston is like in its
Yeah,
own tier
both.
kind of right
You
now, and
have to.
then
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they defended champ, so you got to give that respect.
And it did nothing but re-sign all their players. So
Yeah.
so knowing that Boston is kind of like the team to beat, obviously everybody's going to try to be going at them this year. They had 64 wins last year, which is crazy. 78% win percentage. What teams will we put in if we put them in like some sort of like star tier above A tier, who will we put in the A tier? Um, for what's your all opinions on that?
I think Philly comes to mind for everybody. I think obviously it's just always a question of health with Philly. Um,
Yeah.
they have one of the premier players in the league that can't be stopped by anyone in the NBA, but he can stop himself by being off the floor. So I do think Philly's the first name that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I mean, Philly picked up Paul George, Caleb Martin, signed Kelly Oubre back, picked up Andre Drummond, which is big because Embiid's going to miss some time. And from what training camp sounds like, Embiid's going to be on some load management so that Drummond's going to be good to back him up. Um, the other team, though, that, should definitely be in this A tier, obviously, after making this splash and getting Cat in a trade is the New York Knicks. I think those two teams are in the A tier. There is another team in the East that, I might be willing to throw in that tier, but I want to get your thoughts on it too. Do you think it's just Philly and the Knicks in that tier right behind the Celtics, or do we put a team like the Bucks or the Cavs or the Pacers or the Heat in that same tier? Like, is there anybody that you see on that same level?
Absolutely the
Yeah,
Bucks.
definitely the Bucks for sure. You got Dame and I think there's the two of them, Dame and his boy. I think they will definitely make it tough. That's two of them there in Milwaukee's real tough. You can't ignore that. It's no way.
Yeah, I mean, with Dame and Giannis, it's been kind of weird. So, like, they were asking Giannis at the media day, have you and Dame been, hanging out over the summer? Nah, we didn't talk over the summer at all. I was like, that's a weird answer. Like, it's crazy. Like the Knicks, I feel like the vibes are there. They all podcast together. They're boys. They're hyped for this
Yeah,
season. The Sixers been going crazy. They came out like 3 weeks early and started training for the season, like as a team. Embiid was going on like team trips and stuff like that. Like Embiid he's more of an introvert, so he's not usually doing all that. Like I feel like the vibes are there. I don't know why. I just feel weird about the vibes for
yeah.
the Bucks. Like
I
it feels
picked
like
up on that.
Giannis didn't want to
I
be
picked.
there. Him and
Yeah,
or not Giannis, Dame didn't want to be there. Him and Giannis don't really seem to get like together all great.
yeah.
What are
I
your
don't see
thoughts
the
on that?
chemistry. Yeah, I personally, even when he first got there, I was really curious about that chemistry between them two. Um, they seem to be playing ball, but they don't seem to have that synergy that you need to be balling straight lock in. And I think that's what they missing as of right now. Because that and who knows, maybe they might still get it, but they don't seem to be synergizing, my man. They don't seem to be connected on that floor.
So let me say one thing before you go, Chris. So with Doc Rivers, who they fired their first coach last year and picked up Doc Rivers, who Sixers fans laughed when they did that because that really, when they picked him up, the Sixers fans were all like, all right, well, we don't have to worry about the Bucks anymore. I'm dead serious. Like, that's basically all we said on Twitter. Um, so they picked him up last year. Did you realize that the half the season that he was there, the Bucks had a losing record while they had Doc
Uh,
Rivers as their head coach? Which
I
is
didn't know
crazy. I
that.
know they had like Middleton in and out of the lineup. I know Giannis got banged up and Dame ended up getting banged up later in the year. So they had a lot of injuries that they dealt with. But even still, like that
Yeah,
team shouldn't be going under 500 for any long extended period of time. So
yeah.
that's personally, I would put them in a tier below this the Knicks and the Sixers. But I guess because they have Giannis and Dame, like you kind of got to put them there.
Kind
They
of on
also
paper,
picked up
like on paper, it looked like works.
yeah, they picked up what's the name? Gary Trent Jr. Believe they have Torian Prince. So they do have some hoopers on that team. Their point guard, their backup point guard is DeLon Wright, which is a big pickup for them. So
Yeah.
they do have some guys on that team that are going to really help them. But personally, I would put them a tier below in the B tier, but both of y'all said y'all agree that they're in the A tier. That's fine. We could put Knicks, Sixers, Bucks in that A tier. What do y'all see for the rest of those teams in the East? Any other teams you throw in the A tier? You got Cleveland, who has the double bigs with Jared Allen. They also have um, Mobley, they got Garland, Mitchell, Levert. So they got some guys on that team. Orlando picked up KCP. So they made a good run last year. They had like one of
Yeah.
the top defenses in the league. Now they add KCP to that. They got the Wagner brothers. They got a lot of talent over there. Suggs. So bro,
And
what's
the
his
Heat,
name? The 6'10" dude who was always hurt, Jonathan Isaac. So they
yeah.
got some talent over there. And then the Pacers made the conference finals last year, so we can't discount them. And then the last team, the Heat, they also, are a team that can't be counted out. So what do y'all think about those four, I think four teams I just
Well,
named?
well, speaking on the Heat, I just had a thought about them. I think losing Martin is big for them. I don't think they building is falling down over there, or they need to hit the panic button over there. But I think that was a big loss for them because he contributed a lot while he was there. So I think, and I'm not saying the whole foundation is shaking, but I think that's a pretty big loss and a great pickup for the Sixers, honestly. So, but you can't. He's a dog. He goes forward. He puts his 110% into his game, so you can't ever put them out of it. And a thing on the Bucks, like I put my vote in, put them in an A list simply because of is Giannis and Dame, so you can't count that out. But they have not shown the same synergy or same connection and all court chemistry that like the Celtics obviously showed, the Sixers and the Knicks have shown. So the chemistry is not there like it should be. So put that in with my vote. I don't, just in case you get thrown in my face later. I said that.
I'll touch briefly on the Bucks thing. I won't stay on it. I do think we Doc Rip to be first, Doc Rivers, I'm not a fan of him. I think he's overrated. However, I think we did kind of brush over the injuries. We said, yeah,
Yeah,
Antetokounmpo was out and Dame had some injuries. Those are big pieces. And I think when we're speaking at this point going into the season, when we're speaking on the Bucks, the Knicks, and the Sixers, we're talking about potential because they all had splashes, they all had big changes, so it's all a big potential conversation. The only
yeah.
team that's really bringing the same mix back is the Celtics. That's why I kind
That's
of put
true.
them a tier ahead of everyone.
That's
To
facts.
touch on the four teams you spoke on, I do love what Orlando's putting together, but they just rub me as a type of team that's going to be like a thorn in everybody's side,
Yeah,
but never
yeah.
really like taken
Palms
seriously, kind of like
playoffs.
the
Yeah,
Pacers with Danny Granger and Paul George back in the day.
yeah.
Granted, they had to keep running into LeBron, but they were there, but we never really thought they were going to win anything. That's kind of how I feel about Orlando.
I
I
respect
think
that.
Jimmy and the Heat, I think that's kind of running its course. I don't know if y'all remember last season, the little weird exchanges from Pat Riley talking in the interviews, and
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
Butler
yeah.
just seems like he don't really care about anything, but we know he's human.
That
So I
got
think
crazy.
it's kind of he's always gonna be that tough player, but I think that's kind of reining its course because I think Jimmy, as good as he is, does have limitations when you talk about leading a team. So I think I love Bam out there. I love Jimmy. I just feel like they're a player away from actually like making a
Yeah,
difference. But I think they'll
yeah.
be
I
that
agree.
same again like Orlando, that thorn. You can't look past them, but
Right.
they're gonna but and then the Pacers, I think that was an anomaly. They'll be a good team, but they won't be back in the Eastern Conference long as everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I don't know. There's nothing that's really
I don't see them getting past healthy Knicks or Sixers. Honestly.
but that's a big question though, as far as health.
Yeah.
Yeah, you already.
So with the Pacers, like I had been saying, I felt like they were like the Hawks that year that they made that run.
Yeah, definitely.
But the more I think about it, the more I think the Pacers might be more legitimate than that because they have Halliburton who came back and he never really was like healthy again once because he got injured last year. And I feel like after that he was hampered for the rest of the season. But they did add Pascal Siakam. They do have
It's tough.
Miles Turner.
Yeah.
So they have like one of the best power forward center tandems in the league, with Miles Turner being one of the best defenders, and then you got Siakam, who's really, pretty solid at everything. Now
Yeah, they're
you
definitely
got
scrappy.
Halliburton hitting them the ball. They got TJ McConnell off the bench. They got some young boys that were balling out for the Pacers, playing shooting guard and small forward. So I feel like they got some talent there. I can actually see they re-signed Obi Toppin. So
Yeah.
I can actually see them, being a thorn, I'd say, like the Magic. I don't think they're gonna quite fall like the Hawks did. The Hawks made that run, and then for the last couple of years, they really just have been like barely a play-in team. So, um, the like you said about Jimmy, yeah, he just seems like discontent there right now. Him and Pat Riley just had like some weird exchanges. Jimmy didn't do any of the crazy stuff for picture day this year.
Yeah.
He had like the locks one year, and then he had like the emo hair, and then this year he just took normal pictures. Like I feel like he's kind of like not having fun. But with him and Bam, like you can never really count them out. They can really
Yeah,
beat any team, like if they're locked in and they're hitting shots.
I agree.
But yeah, I would put those four teams in like a B tier. If we had to say there was a best team out of those four, though, who are we picking? Like out of Cleveland, Magic, the Pacers, and the Heat.
I would probably
Probably
I would
I would have
probably
to go
go
Pacers.
Orlando. Oh, he likes the Pacers. I like
I
Orlando
like
out of these
See,
Orlando.
four.
I like Cleveland. They got Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. They got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Their only weakness is the small forward position. Uh, so like it's crazy that's how kind of even that is right there. Like
Yeah,
we all
really.
picked a different team and none of us said the Heat, which is crazy. So that just kind of shows you like the disparity that you have right now in the East. It's way more competitive than it's been in the past, decade probably. Um,
I agree. And the only reason I didn't pick the Heat is because Millie made a really good point, as well as you, Chris, when you were saying like Millie said just that the chemistry is not there. It seemed like it's running. So when he said that, it's true. It seemed like it is kind of running this course, and it don't seem like. And we all know when Jimmy get when he gets to a certain place, he's definitely gonna dial it back. We've seen it happen like 2 times already.
All right,
Same
so
for
we're
Pat
gonna
Riley.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yep. So we're gonna switch it over to the West. Um, Kind of have a discussion about like the West standings right now and what that looks like. And talk about like the whole East versus West thing. I mean, in the past, I think we all can agree the West has just had, teams down 1 through 10 that can make the playoffs. They are still like that. I can
yeah.
say the East is
The
more like that now, but 1 through 8.
call it the Wild West for real. It's open season out there.
Yep, but I would say that to top the West off right now is like Oklahoma City won 57 games last year. They were the 1 seed last year. And what did they do this summer? They traded their
Caruso.
they traded their worst player, Giddy, who was only playing 18 minutes per game in the playoffs, by the way. They didn't want him out there. He couldn't shoot. He didn't really fit with this team anymore. Not they got rid of him and turned him into Caruso without giving up a draft pick when
That's
they have a
crazy, yo.
boatload of draft picks. That was the dumbest trade I've ever seen from Chicago. I don't
I
know
don't I
what they're
don't
doing
get it.
over there.
I don't get it.
Their management is what we used to expect from the Knicks. Chicago's just so far gone right now. The Knicks have turned around their management 100%, but Chicago right now,
They still looking for their next Jordan. That's their problem.
Chicago could have had a fire sale on players like Drummond,
Yeah,
DeRozan, Caruso, Levine. I know they were trying to package him with someone, but the crazy thing is like Chicago had guys that if last year around the deadline they would have just traded DeRozan or traded Drummond, they could have gotten like a bunch of second round picks, maybe some first round picks. Now they basically all those players walked in free agency and they basically got nothing.
nothing out of it. Nothing
And
at all.
so they
I
were
think
just
they
being
tried to trade
stupid.
him.
They didn't try to
What?
trade Drummond because the Sixers actually made a push at the deadline last year for Drummond, and they said it was right about to happen, but then Chicago pulled back at the last second and said, "No, we think we're going to keep him." And then they basically got rid of him in free agency for nothing. They could have gotten two second round draft picks for him, but instead they're like, "Nah, we're going to keep him," and then get nothing. So I don't know what they're doing over there, but yeah, it's rough. OKC basically got Caruso and Hartenstein, who was a beast last year for the
Yeah,
Knicks. He was
big
cooking the
pickups.
Sixers. He was guarding Embiid. He was hitting that little floater. He had that pick and roll going with Jalen Brunson, and basically both of those guys who are both good passers, both good basketball players, really good defenders, are going to turn that team who was already a 1 seed, and I think they're the clear cut for me, the
Yeah.
clear cut favorite in the West right now.
How you
So,
feel
what are
about
your
that,
thoughts on
Millie?
that
Which
on OKC?
I'm curious of your thoughts, Millie. This is your damn man.
OKC is about to be the truth. Um, you got Chet coming back,
Mm-hmm.
potentially better, stronger, bigger. Shea is crazy. He just don't
Oh yeah,
get as much. He don't get as much camera time because they're in OKC. They
right.
play late, but he's him. He's definitely like he's up there with them guys.
Without a doubt.
Like you said, you bring in Caruso, you bring in Hartenstein, great glue guys.
Big pickups, man.
I see nothing but another step for them. And talking about organizations, whoever's in that front office, they're doing their thing.
They're earning that check
Uh,
for real.
they got all them picks. Nobody knew
Yeah.
what they was gonna turn those picks into. Now we see
They
it turn. It's growing in front of our eyes, so we're gonna see.
they haven't turned those picks into anything. They still have like 20 picks on under their team. So it's crazy they made all those
That's
moves and
crazy.
they still have all those draft picks, which is crazy.
That's wild. They didn't have to use any of them. Almost any of them. That's
But
wild.
hopefully they can hold on to all these guys and they can make something of this because this is the same team that had Westbrook, Kevin Durant,
That's
Harden.
facts.
They had them all. So it's like, are we seeing the same thing again? Is Shea gonna get tired? Can they turn those picks into another star? Because sometimes that's just what it takes in this league, especially playing in the West. So I think it's very interesting. I think they're in a great place, though. I mean, it's nothing
I
but
will
good
say to
things.
that. I will say to that. I think just a slight difference in the situation. It's one thing to take like three mega stars and put them together, big stars, put them together. But this is more like they put more role players together, which is what you should do in putting together a good squad, in my opinion. It's hard to make three big egos fit. Not to say that they was all, thought they was better than each other, but they had back in the day with Westbrook, KD. And I think with those kind of players, it's kind of tough, trying to because everybody want to be be the man on the team. But I think now they got more role plays they set in place, and it could be like potentially dangerous out there for them.
Yeah, I would say the with the new CBA, that's the big scare for them is because like Shea's a max player. Jalen Williams is a beast. I don't know if y'all get to watch him much, but dude's gonna be a max player one day. I don't know if it's gonna be now or you know how soon that's gonna be, but he's 100% that guy. He's super talented. You know, once all of their rookie contracts are up, they're all gonna be due a good amount of money. So they're going to have to make this run. If they do end up ever making a run, they're going to have to do it young before all these players become expensive.
Yeah.
Facts. It's
So,
already happening.
Yep.
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 And so with that, we do we say that they're the clear-cut favorite right now, or do
I
you have
think we.
other thoughts on that in the
I
West?
don't think I don't think there's a clear cut favorite because you have teams like Denver. A lot of people laughed at them signing Westbrook. I think it's a great pickup for a team like them. Um, I mean, I don't know what Minnesota's going to do. Um, it's just some guys out there. I mean, of course, I want to say my team. I just think I got to see some stuff first. New coach, not many additions in the offseason, but we are bringing back, if they can stay healthy, a starting lineup that has been successful. So I don't think there's a clear cut favorite because it's like a dog eat dog type situation over there.
Yeah. Well, we base it off of potential. We all think of what the team could be. So it's hard to place it there. Just potentially though, OKC is going to look like they could be extremely problematic. If they utilize those guys right. Yeah. So we shall see.
If we talk about the A tier though, in the West, are we seeing Thunder, Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Mavericks?
Gotta put
Like
the Mavericks in there.
what about the Suns? Are we including them or not? Are they down a tier with like the Lakers and the Warriors or
All these choices.
Yeah, I put the Suns with us. Like they ain't got a really got a point guard. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Bill, you got Booker, who's kind of like the same type vibe.
Yeah.
Um, I was big on that move when they made it. I thought it was going to be great, but it's kind of like unfilled potential at this point.
Yep.
So I put them down there with the Lakers.
Um, so I guess that moves into our B tier. So is that what we're gonna call the Warriors, the Lakers, the Suns, and is there another team, the Kings or the Pelicans, or do we just keep like the Warriors, Lakers, um, in that tier with the Suns?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't put nobody else in there
I feel
now.
like
Not.
those
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel like those teams all have veterans who are like in their mid to late 30s or, and some guys that are like late 20s. All three of those teams feel like they have like, the past and the present kind of on those teams a bit.
No shade to the chef, but I do put the Warriors a tier below those teams that they
I
haven't
was
made
gonna
they
say,
made the playoffs last year. Um, I don't know. Did they get it in the year before? They may have.
I think they barely eked in the
they
the
squeaked. They
play-in.
squeaked in the year
And I
before, I
and I
believe.
just don't know how much better they're gonna get with their current construct. I mean, chef, no shade to the chef, he's still him.
Yeah.
But Draymond, I mean, his role is the same, but his abilities is kind of
Yeah. No, but
it's on the
I
other
mean,
side of the hill. He bring in Buddy Hield, that's streaky. You don't know. I mean,
if you keep it real, if you just being honest about their situation, they get into, I mean, for as an athlete in the NBA, they get into that age where, they on the other side of that hill, on a decline, if we keeping it real. And again, I'm not taking away Chef is one of the greatest, and even Green. It's just that they're not going to be able to do what they did early in their careers again right now. I think that's what they was aiming for before they shipped my boy off to Washington. Who I think they I think they was aiming to put some youth into it, but I guess they obviously my boy Green rocked him.
They really like that boy Podzimski or whatever. They
Yeah,
think that they didn't want to include him in any trade packages, even for like Paul George. So they really believe in him being the future. They also did get D'Anthony Melton, who, if he can stay healthy, is a really solid addition. As a Sixers fan, he was part of the Embiid lineups that were like plus 15 on the court. The problem is he had a back issue that kept nagging him every time. But a really good defender, really good shooter. I think they added shooters, so they're going to shoot the ball well from three, but I just don't know how well they have anything else. So, um, I want to get your thoughts on a couple other teams that I think are going to be strong because the West has 10, 11 teams that maybe 12 that are going to be fighting for playoff spots, and there's only eight playoff spots, 10 if you include the play-in. So those teams are the Pelicans, the Kings, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, and the Spurs. I think all of those teams like are going to be better this year. The Rockets had a 500 record last year and were only the 11 seed, even though they
Wow.
broke even. Um, the Kings were, I think, the two seed last year, and
Yeah, I
they
think
Yeah.
dropped
they're
all the
up
way
there.
down. They
I
dropped
think
all the
we
way down to
forgot
the
about them.
nine. Yep, they dropped down to the nine seed last year. And then the Pelicans, who I really wasn't paying attention to them much last year. I was very surprised to see that they were at the seven seed when the end of the year came around. Knowing that Zion was in and out of the lineup, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and then they picked up DeJounte Murray over the summer. So I think they have a lot of decisions to make over. I'm starting with the Pelicans. Uh, they have Herb Jones who needs to get an extension, and they also have Trey Murphy, who is going to be looking for an extension, who just came out in a report and said that he believes he's a starter in this league. So I don't know if it's trouble over in New Orleans, but
I
you
mean,
got
but if
these
you were
young
playing,
guys in only certain amount of spots. I think they're getting to that point where they need to figure out what they're doing with Ingram before these other guys get impatient with their money.
I'm not saying I disagree with my man take on himself and his role, but if you in the NBA, what NBA player is not going to say that? I'm just saying. I'm just keeping it real. Who's not going to say they don't believe they start they starter?
I think speaking on the Kings, I think we kind of let them slide a little bit. I don't think
Yeah,
they're
we
down
did.
there in that tier with the teams we just listed them with. I
I
think
agree.
if at the very least they're in the tier with the Lakers and if not ahead of the Lakers, if I'm going
Yeah,
to be honest, because they
yeah,
did just add DeRozan, and
Okay.
who I think is a great pickup for that team to
that's
go with
true.
De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Sabonis, and them boys is great guys. That's unselfish,
They had a
and
lot
so
of quiet success.
I do think they're going to take a step forward, which I think will put them a tier ahead of all these teams we've listed. Honestly,
Yeah, I'm on that. I definitely agree with that. But they had again, they had. I'm just saying that I just think they had really. That's one of those teams that don't get as much TV time as others, and I think they had quiet success, which is not a bad thing for a franchise. In all honesty,
Yeah, I didn't really get to watch them last year, but I know the year before they had a really good year, and then last year they fell down to the nine seed. They had a 46 and 36 record. They were tied with the Warriors. So I don't know if they had injuries they were dealing with. I know Malik Monk went down. I don't know about De'Aaron Fox and
hmm
Sabonis, but adding DeRozan is big. I think maybe they will push back up a bit, and try to get like that 4 or 5 seed. Um, a team that I haven't mentioned at all yet, that had the 4 seed last year is the Clippers. Do we think that they're going to fall out of the play, fall down and go below the play-in, maybe below the Rockets? Or do we have like good expectations for Kawhi and Harden and all those young guys they got over there?
again,
I
the health.
yeah, yeah, like, yeah,
I think that's the biggest question. I mean, Kawhi, we know we don't never know what's going on with Kawhi, but when he's there, he's there.
yeah,
Harden, I mean, he can give you a burst for a little bit, and then he has a certain lower than his standards for 10 straight games, and then
yeah.
he gives you 30 and 10. They're like they're back, and he also has injury history. So I just think again with them to answer your question, if healthy, we'll just assume everyone's healthy for this conversation. I think they'll stay in the same area.
Yeah.
I think moving PG is going to help get whatever is left out of James Harden. Because there's only one ball. He's ball dominant. Kawhi is the
Yeah.
guy there. So I do think I think if they're healthy, they'll be around the same area.
So
I think. I feel like it's a change. Just real quick, I just feel like it's a changing on horizon. There's a change of guards that's coming in. A lot of these young players is just starting to pour in because it felt like we went a long duration of time a few seasons back where there wasn't much, that like talent coming in. Not speaking ill of talent that coming in, but they coming in kind of waves right now, man. And these young boys, I think, is about to change guard soon. Because all our 'cause out, especially in the West, a lot of those lead teams are being led by LeBron and Curry. and I think the change is right there now. I don't think it's far
I
off.
think it happened already.
Yeah, I
If you
don't
look
think
at
it's
the
official
playoff,
yet.
if you look at the playoff landscape last year, it happened.
Yeah,
Because
that's
again,
true.
we're always talking about health with our other big guys. So
Well,
Yep. So the Clippers, they lost Paul George, Mason Plumlee, Daniel Tice, and Russell Westbrook, but they actually brought in some interesting players. So they brought back Harden on a 2-year deal. They brought back Zubac on a 3-year deal.
Zuby,
They picked up Mo Bamba. They brought back Nicholas Batum. They signed Chris Dunn. They signed Derek Jones from who helped the Mavericks make the
solid
finals last
for
year.
sure.
They were able to bring him in, and then they also were able to get Kevin Porter Jr., which was
oh,
an
that's big.
interesting pickup. So they do have
Right.
some talent there, and with Paul George moving out, maybe some of these other guys get a bigger opportunity. Harden's numbers are probably going to go up. His points per game, his assists per game. Kawhi, if he can stay healthy, his numbers will probably be, about the same. Kawhi is who he is, but they do have some good role players around those guys. So I do think they're going to take a little bit of a drop. I think they're going to be one of the play-in teams. Uh, but that leads me into the next team is Memphis, man. They were good. They were the number one seed, I think, last year, no, 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
they dropped all the way to 13. What do we expect with John Morant coming back? With them adding Edie and then also having Jaren Jackson, Marcus
Marcus
Smart,
Smart,
and they
yeah.
Yeah.
have Desmond Bain.
Yeah.
That's a good starting.
It is. It is. I think that's going to be another one of those teams. It's going to come also going to come down to chemistry. How much chemistry can it be? So if they build chemistry, problematic. But I don't see the chemistry being built fast with them again, only because of some of the players that's there. But I could be wrong, you know. It's all going to come down to chemistry with them.
They brought back Luke Kennard and they also signed Yuto Watanabe. So they did bring in a couple guys to fill out that roster. But they did lose Xavier Tillman last year to the Celtics. So, they have talent there, but for them to go from like the 1 seed all the way down to the 13 seed, I wonder where they're going to end up this year. I really don't know. Like you said, the chemistry is going to have to get back. But I thought it was an interesting team to look out for this year.
I think by default, they're going to be better. John Morant's back. Like you said, they brought in Edie, who I think is going to be a little bit more of an impact than people think. Marcus Smart's unselfish player, defense. Desmond Bain can catch fire, crazy.
Yeah.
I think John Morant's going to be on the revenge tour. Everybody kind of like laughed at him for the whole last year, had his
So he's gonna
jokes
be
all
on it.
year, and John Morant's him too, and
Yeah.
he was on a streak to getting better, and then unfortunately the off the court things going on, then he got hurt. So it's like I think by default they'll be a better team and they'll be up in the mix where you talk about the Warriors and Sacramento and all those other teams. I do think they'll be back in the mix.
And I want to speak to the fact, like, and also when you think about it, if you're being real about a situation, of course, when a player is injured, not just injured, when they're not able to play with a team, whether it's injury or suspension, whatever, I don't think nobody's going to say it out loud, but a lot of teams expect, a lot of players might expect the team to struggle big time when they out. Like the Randall situation in New York, and then what happened when Randall went out, New York actually increases productivity. Not to say I still was looking forward to Randall joining the team, and I speak to the same thing with Memphis, but Ja, like I don't how do you think they feel coming when they stepped out of the scene? They team seem to kind of progress a little bit. I don't know
You know if they
how
progress without John Morant?
what happened.
You think they progress without John Morant?
I don't think I think though they struggle. They seem to find a stride later in their season, but I could be wrong.
Last year, so 2 years ago they did. So I think 2 years ago, there was this thing about when John Morant, I think, missed some time. I think they played well. I think they had what's his name? Jones? Is it not Trey Jones? Who's the point guard who was over the backup point guard for Memphis maybe 2 years ago? He might be on the Wizards now.
The Tyus?
Tyus Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They had Tyus Jones, and I think he was able to keep them afloat. And I think they did have a nice win streak when Ja went down. So there was that rumor that went around for a bit that maybe they were better without him. But I think we saw last year with an extended period of time, they didn't have Tyus Jones, they didn't have DeAnthony Melton at
yeah,
guard. Also Marcus Smart went down, which partially went to that, and I think Desmond Bain got hurt. So they had a lot of injuries, but I would say that rumor was dispelled last year. I don't think the Grizzlies were able to, swim without John Morant. They might be able
yeah.
to pull off a game or two if he gets hurt, But I think long-term absence, they're not a better team. There's just no way
No,
that dude
definitely.
is so much talent that he's gonna win them some games. So
Yeah, when you
uh,
play in certain teams and you get down to a certain moment in the game, you meet a guy that other guys can't do what he can do. And that's what they were able to win some games, but you could tell when another team star got cooking, they couldn't match it.
Yeah.
And that's what John Moran is. He can come in, he can draw the foul, he can dunk, get the crowd going crazy. And that just pours into the energy of the team. I hate when they try to like compartmentalize a period of time played when a star is out and say, "Oh, are they better?" When
Yeah.
everybody knows damn well they're
And they
not
look
better
for
without that
headlines.
player.
They
They
just
do
look
that
for
with every
headlines.
team, and I hate it.
Yeah. But that's the part of I'm talking about. Of course, I'm not sitting here saying that that team is better without John Morant. What I'm saying is, it's other factors that plays into players' psyche when they're playing for the team or not playing for the team in this situation. And I think like Randall, I can speak to that. Um, him not
even
being able to be
Tyler
on the
Hero.
floor, yeah, and just hearing what the media is saying and social media is saying, and you thinking that that's what's coming from the top as well. That's what your franchise is feeling. That might play into the psyche and how that chemistry is going to build, getting back with your squad. Which is evident with I really the breakdown that happened between with Randall coming back. I think there's a lot more to it that's not being publicized. You know,
Yeah, maybe yeah, what you're speaking to is more of like the chemistry issues, but
yeah,
having him back, they're probably hoping that there's not as much distraction anymore. I think maybe in the back of their minds there's always like that worry. They're like, if he just gets in with the wrong crowd again, they're probably always in the back of their hand. At least management is gonna have the
yeah,
fear of like all it takes is him being in the wrong place with the wrong people one time, and it becomes an automatic distraction to the team. And then,
I really,
like you're saying, the chemistry is gonna be all off. They're probably gonna be
yeah,
like, "Come on, bro, why are you still
yeah,
hanging out with them, bro? I thought we had this figured out." So I could see that being like a deterrent. And I think with Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart and those guys, they probably could sustain some time without him and still be a good team. But the peak version of this team is with John Morant on the court. So
Absolutely.
definitely,
um,
definitely.
the last team I really want to talk about before we try to get up out of here is the San Antonio Spurs. So I don't think they'll crack the playoffs this year personally. I know I'm speaking early on that, but they picked up Harrison Barnes. They got Chris Paul. The only person they really lost of value is Devontae Graham. How do you feel about Wemby getting some solid vets to join him with Chris Paul, who always makes the playoffs, even that year that was supposed to be a down year in OKC, they still ended up making the playoffs with Chris Paul at their point guard, and also adding Harrison Barnes and Charles Bassey. Do you expect the Spurs to make a playoff push, or are they like still one more year away from trying to make a push into the playoffs?
I don't think it's impossible that they make in or squeak in or get in to the playoffs. I do believe that they have their player that they want to build around. That's a plus. I believe that they got a lot. I mean, but with the West being with what it is, it's going to be tough for them, in my opinion, to kind of make the playoffs as they look right now. And again, they could possibly make it, but I think having that player to build around and structure around, that's going to make them problematic in the next 2 to 3 seasons to come.
Honestly, with this new format of the play-in, I do think they can make a playoff appearance possibly.
What, like a
Like you
10 seed that ends up winning their playing
Hey, he
games?
just gotta be right on that night. I'm just saying, like you said, Chris Paul has elevated every team he's been on, jokes or not. And I
Facts.
think just having somebody that's going to have the ball, like if you watch the Spurs play, I don't know how much you guys have watched them play. It's very frustrating because some of those guys that were handling the ball they weren't getting Wemby the ball in spots that they should be getting Wemby the ball. Like that's Wemby, and
Yeah.
that's the Spurs. Like get Wemby the ball. Chris Paul is going to know exactly. He's going to tell him where to be. He's going to
Yep.
control that mid range. He's going to throw the lobs, and he's not looking to really score. So I think just learning from Chris Paul and
Yeah.
being on the receiving end of the Chris Paul assists, which he still is high in the league on when he's playing.
He's
I
gonna be
think
big
it's
for
going to
his
benefit
development.
them. I think on the right night it could scare some people. And if like I said, that play in you play good for 2 nights, you can find yourself in the playing spot. So I think I like their chances to make a playoff push to answer that
And
question.
and to speak on what you said about the ball handlers on the team not finding him, I watched a compilation of videos of times where Wemby basically all they needed to do was throw up a little floater for him as an alley-oop, and he was waiting for the ball. He's waving his arms, he's jumping, he's right there by the rim, and they go up for a stupid jump shot instead
Made
of
no
throwing up a
sense.
little basic pass. Someone said it was a conspiracy that they didn't want to pass on the ball because they were hating on him. I saw another conspiracy that Popovich was trying to
It's
make him
possible.
more that Popovich was trying to make him more demanding because he's very passive. So the conspiracy was that Pop was making them not pass him the ball until he demanded it to make him, more demanding of the ball and things like that. I don't believe that one. I just don't think they had the talent and the playmaking skills around him to be able to maximize his potential. So what did they do? They got
Mm,
the number one playmaker in the last 2 decades
yeah.
with Paul George or sorry, Chris Paul to pass him the ball.
I
Was
don't think it was
CP3
any
there?
conspiracy thing. I think you have a team like the Spurs who've been bad for a number of years now, and you got a team full of young boys, and they like, okay, Wimby good. Wimby gonna be here. Nigga, I gotta show what I can do. I
I got
gotta
to do my
show,
job.
nigga, it
I
is
got a
my
job to
time to
get.
shine. Like Wimby gonna get his. We know you big fella. We already know. We get it. So I
You
think a lot
so
of the times you saw some of those folks taking shots where it's like, bro, you trying to win a basketball game here? Or you trying to showcase your ability? So I think that was a disconnect.
That's
So
a
I
good
think with
point.
Chris Paul, you eliminate that.
it was an open house. Everybody was trying to display their resume. That's what it was. I think it's just like you said, and I think, but I do say Wimby, CP3 joined the Wimby. I think he's in a place now. Everything, any good experience he can get to develop himself is big right now. And CP3 going there and working with him is going to bring him to another level, in my opinion.
Agreed.
All right, last team, I forgot to bring them up. The Houston Rockets, 41 and 41 last year, solid roster. Um, we can go into their roster a little bit. Um, they have, Fred VanVleet. Uh, is it Dylan Brooks?
Dylan Brooks,
Do they have
Jalen
Stephen,
Green.
Jalen
Yeah,
Green, Sengun? Who else do they have here? They have if
they
you
got
all
some
know any players
scrappers,
on top
man.
of your head, but they got some talent. They don't
Yeah, they
have like
do.
superstar talent on their team right now, but they have enough talent to win a lot of nights in the NBA. So they're a team that I feel like can find themselves in the play-in if they, keep their chemistry good and just keep building what they have over there. Do you have any
I
thoughts
think,
on them as a Lakers fan, Chris?
As a Lakers fan, I think going into this year, I think they'll be about what they were last year. Whether that's winning 3 more games or losing three less games, I think they'll generally be the same type of team again. It doesn't seem like a team that's built to like win. Obviously, they're building that up, so obviously they're not there now. I think it's guys trying to establish their role in this league, their place in this league. We all know Dylan Brooks loved to be the villain, so that'll always draw the crowd. Jalen Green, I think, is really good if he could put it together consistently. So I think to answer your question, they'll be about what they were last year, give or take a few.
yeah. Just to piggyback off you, see, Millie, I think just the fact that we were just talking about the Spurs having Wimby and having something to build around. They don't have that, so I think they just trying to maintain their relevancy. I think they just trying to be there. So I think that's why they will be kind of the same as last season, only because I don't think they necessarily building around nobody again. They just trying to be there. There's like, yo, they just don't forget about us. We here. They
Yeah,
trying to
facts.
live.
And they're gonna be that. They're gonna be that tough team. They want to fight during the game because
Oh yeah,
just
they
because of Dylan
scrappy.
Brooks, that
Yeah,
mentality, I just don't know how many wins that'll translate to
Yeah.
late into the
yeah.
season.
They got some good players though. They got Steven Adams, Jay Tate,
They did
Jabari
pick up Steven
Smith, Tari
Adams.
That's
Eason.
big.
They also have Reed Shepard, who looked like a certified bucket in the summer league. I'm
Yeah,
excited
maybe I'm
for
sleeping.
him.
Maybe I'm
So
sleeping a little bit.
they got Aaron Holiday on the team now, who's a solid role player, and Jeff Green is a vet, and then Cam Whitmore. I mean, like they have young talent. They got current like in their prime talent, and then they have solid vets who have been around for a long time. I don't know. They're a team that I agree with you. I don't think they're going to be too much above 500, but they're a team that could spoil the fun for a team like the Warriors or the Pelicans or another team who's trying to get into the play-in. they're a team that could spoil something for somebody.
Yeah, I
I don't
appreciate
see
you
them
not
being a
saying the
good team.
Lakers.
You gonna say we? Oh,
I
you say we gonna
appreciate,
say Lakers?
I
That's what we
appreciate,
doing?
no, I must say, I do
The
got a little,
NBA,
I
the NBA ain't gonna let that happen. I
I
Cause
don't
got a
Chris
little
said
see.
he's gonna
Dylan
be
Brooks
nice.
bias, so I appreciate you not putting the Lakers in there because I was gonna be like, nah.
That was Chris being nice. That's because it's our first one. This is our first show together. I think that's why he's being nice right now. He won't come back.
He know.
But yeah. So last words. I think we're t done previewing the teams. We already talked about a lot of the teams. We did miss some of those teams that are just young or I just don't see making the playoffs. Um, but the last thing that kind of we've all been talking about is just like the structure of the NBA right now with the East and the West. Um, I think there are 8 teams in the East right now that can make the playoffs. We went through them. Um, and then in the West, I think there are 12 teams that potentially can make the playoffs, which is
No,
just
Facts.
different. I think the West, it's harder to say who are the top dogs. There are a lot of teams that could be the top dog. I think the East, though, has an advantage in the fact that we know who their top dogs are. And I think
yeah,
those top dogs can compete with most teams in the West. So I'd say like there's a strength there in knowing Boston, New York, and Philly and Milwaukee are top dogs, and I think those teams can contend with any of the teams in the West. But I'd say the West has more teams that have a potential to make a bigger impact, if you know what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
East has that top heavy talent, West has a lot of talent spread throughout. So but I think it's way more even East West than it's been in a long time. If you
I
guys have any
agree.
thoughts on
I
that,
agree, and I agree with you when it comes to the West. I think in the past seasons, going back a few seasons, I think a lot of West teams kind of structure themselves to kind of compete with those big dogs out there, like the Lakers and the Golden State. And I think with the ball kind of evening out with the rest of the teams out there, that's why it's open season. I think teams don't have to worry about structuring their teams. They can form their own identities at this point and kind of try to go for that top spot. And before you couldn't do that, you had to make sure you structure a team to kind of defend or go against those dominant teams that was out there. So I think I like what happened in the West. I like the competition that's going to come out of it. It's going to just make NBA better and basketball better general.
Yeah, we have to applaud the NBA for that. I mean, like Chris spoke to earlier, the new CBA has made it tougher to have the triple threat, the 3 guys on the next contract, and then still have the ability to have depth. So I think that's the evening of the guards. You see teams trying to get right with the cap, teams trying to get the best out of players that they may not have looked to as much before to get stuff out of more minutes. I kind of agree to say it's an advantage for the East to have the top 4. But I think the guys coming out the West have been kind of the same guys the last few years. You got Minnesota stepping up in there now, but the Clippers have been there. The Lakers is always going to be there. The Lakers, if LeBron and AD are healthy, Denver is going to be there every year. I think Westbrook going there, but I would agree. The top 4 is definitely more solidified over in the East. I just don't know matchup wise how it's going to go, but if guys are healthy, those top 4 teams are obviously going to be able to compete with everybody. So yeah.
I think the West, the advantage that they have is that whoever does make it out is more battle tested.
Yeah,
Because they've had every matchup out West, even the 1-8 matchup is going to be down to the wire pretty much every game. Whereas in the East, when Boston matches up with the 8 seed, you pretty much know Boston's going to win.
yeah.
The 2 seed, whoever gets the 2 seed out East is probably going to beat the 7 seed. There is a little bit of disparity there, but I would say like the West is a dogfight. And Boston had the advantage of a lot of teams being injured last year, so they didn't really get battle tested. So they kind of were fresh heading into the finals, besides the whole
Yeah.
Porzingis thing. I think this year, whoever comes out of the East is going to be worn out. They're going to be tired. It's going to be like a dogfight out there
Because
with
it's
New
a fight. It's
York.
always like
Yeah.
that.
So I think both teams, like both East and West this year, whoever comes out battle tested, I think the finals this year have the potential to be the best finals that we've seen in a long
Mhm.
time because of that. And then the
The
last
players are
thing,
jumping last year. The last year
oh,
in the
for
playoffs was
sure.
jumping.
For sure. I think one of the best series happened round one with the Knicks and the Sixers. I
Yeah,
think that
that
was
was big.
must-watch TV.
Yeah, really.
But even like the playing games were must-watch TV. I mean, you had
Facts.
Curry and LeBron fighting for their lives. Like it was,
Yeah.
and Curry didn't make it
Thank
in.
God for that play.
So, it's crazy now. So this could be a topic that we talk about later. Um, on our next episode, but I wonder how the NBA expansion that they've been talking about, that's really going to impact the West
Ooh.
and the East. And I think it's going to balance the West and the East even more than we're thinking. Like, I think if they add the teams that they're looking at, which is Vegas and Seattle, that's two West teams.
Ugh.
They're gonna have to pick up players from the expansion draft, so there probably won't be the best teams right off the bat, which means they're gonna push two West teams over to the East, and the
That will
two
be
teams that probably make the
interesting.
most sense to bring over to the East would be like Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies
Hmm.
or the New Orleans Pelicans. Any of those three teams getting out of the dogfight of the West and going to the East makes the East that much more contention and then
Yeah.
makes the West a little bit easier for some of those teams. So that potentially would make that perfect shift to have about 10 really good teams in the West if teams stay, how they are now, and then potentially 10 really good teams in the East
Yeah.
if that happens with the two new franchises coming out West and sending two good teams from the West out East. That's going to make the NBA even
Ooh.
more even than it's been, which it's getting to that point of being even. But I think when that happens, it'll be like that offset of just man, there are 10 teams on both sides that can win this league. So
Really?
I'm really excited about that potential in the next, few years.
That's gonna be fun times. I'll tell you that.
Most
It's gonna make it
definitely.
interesting.
Yeah, do
Most
any of you have
definitely.
any parting words before we finish up today?
Only words is Knicks all day, baby. You already
I'll
know.
say
We're gonna
said it
keep
before
it.
me.
Nah. Me and Chris gonna keep it nice. This is our first show together, so we go. I'm gonna end it, Chris. Thank you for having me. So I want to make sure I get invited back, so I'm not gonna talk too crazy to you.
All right, so don't get off of here yet, but I want to say to all the people who stuck around, if anybody stuck around, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking this out. Uh, please stick around for more NBA content. Yes, I am a Sixers streamer. I'm going to be talking mostly Sixers, but I am going to be bringing on different guests who are fans of different teams. I have a couple more guests that I've lined up to come on to the show. Another Lakers fan, another actually a OKC fan. But I would love to have Ty and Seemingly back on. So if y'all enjoyed the show, please leave some comments. And like always, like, comment, subscribe. You know.
Subscribe to my boy.
So